For those lucky enough to visit the Wonnangatta Valley, it feels like a place lost in time, where little changes apart from the seasons. But this remote valley has a history. The first settlers who called it home faced heartbreak at every turn, and later it became the scene of one of Victoria's most enduring unsolved murders. This is a story of hardship on the edge of civilization, of those brave enough to carve out a life in isolation. A place once tamed, now given back to the bush. The history of the Wonnangatta Valley starts with the Gunnakurni Aboriginal people who lived across Gippsland for many thousands of years. Angus McMillan and Alfred Howard were among the first European explorers to reach the area in the 1850s and 60s. Not long after this, around the mid-1860s, the lives of two families intersected in this remote valley. It's a really amazing valley, just to think that what you see now is pretty much what they would have seen 165 years ago. The place hasn't changed much apart from some vehicle tracks that have been built and some drop toilets here and there. But other than that, the valley would have pretty much been exactly the same as it is today, and that's just the craziest thought, like time has stood completely still in this valley. Ellen was a mother of four, married but separated from her husband. She found a new life with Oliver Smith, an American gold prospector who had come to Australia with his two sons, Tom and Jack. In 1866, Ellen and Oliver moved into the Wonnangatta Valley, becoming the first non-Indigenous settlers to live and work there, grazing cattle. This is the remains of the homestead. So this was an 11-room homestead, apparently grew over time, over a 40-year period. Their time was not going to be without heartache. Although Ellen was already no stranger to tragedy, she'd already lost her young daughter Mary, who had vanished before their journey into the valley, rumoured to have been taken by her ex-husband. Shortly after settling in the valley, Ellen gave birth to a son, Thomas. Just a year later, in 1868, a children's game turned to tragedy. Harry, Ellen's young son, and his older brother James were playing a game of pole vault with long, thin saplings. One snapped, piercing James's chest. He was taken to the hospital in Sale, a journey that would have taken days on horseback. But unfortunately, James died 6 weeks later from his injuries. It feels remote now, coming here in a four-wheel drive and spending 2.5 hours on rough tracks to get here. You can only imagine what it would have been like to actually get here on horseback, and instead of being 2.5 hours, it's 2.5 days. That's just crazy. Despite the grief, life in the valley continued. In 1869, Ellen gave birth to another son, John. The following year, the valley welcomed new faces. William Bryce bought into the lease in 1870, moving in with his wife Annie and their children. He built his own dwelling near the homestead, and together the two families tried to make a life in one of Victoria's most isolated corners. It's interesting where they chose to position their house as well. Where we are is just at the mouth of the Conglomerate Creek Valley. They're next to a creek, and apparently they had a lot of farms and crops sort of way back in that direction. And I guess they've got access to this whole valley as well, which is presumably where they had their cattle. In 1872, Ellen gave birth to twin girls, but tragedy struck again. Ellen died a week later, and in the following days, both newborns passed away. All three were buried in the small cemetery near the homestead. With a number of young children now depending on him, Oliver married Ellen's midwife and sold his share of the property to William. Eventually, it is believed that Oliver returned to the United States, leaving behind the place that had shaped and broken his family. William and Annie remained at Wonnangatta, managing the cattle station through the decades, but their family was also not spared the tragedy of this harsh life. They buried two daughters in the valley, Ellen aged 3 and Jessie aged 21. And over to the side here, you've got Mrs. Bryce's walking track, which leads to the cemetery over there. So, Mrs. Bryce used to like to take her walks down that way to visit her children buried in the cemetery. It was a pretty tough life back then. It's quite tragic, the way they lived and the hardships they went through. William died in 1902 and Annie in 1914. The family eventually sold out of the lease, ending the chapter of those early settlers. The station changed hands and a caretaker was hired to manage it, Jim Barclay. In the years since his mother's death, Harry had become a man of the high country and forged a relationship with the Wonnangatta station. He built a cabin at Eaglevale and prospected the surrounding hills, but he always kept a close connection to Wonnangatta. He used to bring Jim Barclay the mail and supplies on his regular visits. In 1917, Barclay employed a cook and a station hand named John Bamford, a man many considered to be trouble. On one of Harry's visits, he found that Barclay and Bamford were both missing. He stayed a couple of nights and then returned home. On his following visit, Barclay's horse and dog were at the station, but Barclay was nowhere to be found. Realising that something was seriously wrong, a search party was formed and they found Barclay's body in a shallow grave near Conglomerate Creek, close to the homestead. He'd been shot in the back. Suspicion quickly turned to Bamford, who was nowhere to be found. But 8 months later, Bamford's body was discovered under logs near Howard Hut, about 20 kilometres away. He too had been shot. To this day, the case remains one of Australia's most enduring unsolved mysteries. A story no doubt retold many times around the campfire. Who killed Barclay and Bamford and why? Rumour has it that the secret has been passed on but never told. After the murders, Wonnangatta Station changed hands several times before operations finally ceased. In 1988, it was incorporated into the Alpine National Park, and today the valley is a place for four-wheel drive adventurers, hikers, hunters, and those drawn to its rugged beauty and echoes of the past. The remnants of the homestead and the small cemetery still stand, silent witnesses to a story of life, love, loss, and the mystery that will forever haunt the Wonnangatta Valley.